Hello, today is the anniversary of the death in 1961 of Carl Jung, founder of the School of Analytical Psychology, one of the greatest psychotherapists and psychologists, whose work on how the human being works, what goes on inside them and how it all operates is foundational to much of our modern thinking. He was asked in an interview once whether he believed in God, and his reply caused some controversy because he said, "I don't need to believe in God, I know there is a God." And people accused him of simplifying everything, and he did subsequently say that he rather regretted putting it in such a blunt way, because it should, of course, have also reference to the mystery that is God, and the complicated way in which God works, and how wonderful it all is, and so on. But he put on the spot. That was his answer. He had this absolute conviction that out of all his studies of how human beings work, and about their inner workings, and about what he called the collective unconscious, that there is a God who's somehow there, not out there, but there within us and among us and for us. So I was interested to think with him about how this God communicates with us, and he suggested that if God is going to communicate with us, the only way it can be done is through our own thoughts, making it feel making what God wants us to think feel as though they're our own thoughts. And I think this is an interesting thought because this is the way that I think we experience any communication from God. And the problem, of course, is knowing which of the thoughts that we have come from God and which are just our own. Well, of course, all our thoughts, in one sense, come from God. They're part of the way in which God has created us, so that our brains work and we have different interests, different ideas, different values, and God is part of all that. But sometimes there are moments when we feel something specifically has come out of the blue, and I think if we get a jolt with a thought, if a thought seems to be unusual, not quite what we expected, or if we feel it particularly strongly, then I think we need to look at that and ask ourselves whether it is something that God has been trying to put into our minds. We need to check it against what other people might say if we told them about it, our own experience, against the values that Jesus stood for. We need to be sure that we're not just imagining, but I do think that God puts thoughts into our minds, encouraging us often to, there are often thoughts which encourage us to do things that we might not otherwise have thought of doing, but also thoughts about ourselves and about our relationships, which have that extra power and extra energy. And for those of us who have that belief, we would say that comes from God, and certainly Jung would have said that is how it works. And so today, if I get a thought like that, I shall inspect it and examine it, of course, but not be surprised, because God does want to communicate with us. He wants us to be in relationship with him. And oftentimes, like most relationships, there's nothing spectacular about it. We just live our lives together. But sometimes God wants to put a particular thought into our minds. And I think sometimes if we're aware of that possibility, we can spot it, examine it, and if that's the kind of thought it is, act upon it.